one of the most horrifying episodes in medical history.
Every doctor, every hospital, every nurse have been notified. Every woman in this country must be aware that it's most important that they check their medicine cabinet and that they do not take this drug.
In 1960, at the beginning of her pharmaceutical career, Frances Oldham Kelsey took a courageous, controversial stand against granting FDA approval to the drug thalidomide. In spite of pressure from thalidomide's manufacturer, her refusal to permit distribution in the United States was a result of a lack of evidence supporting the drug's safety. Consequently, Kelsey's protests prevented an international health crisis from reaching the United States, effectively serving as a turning point in transforming pharmaceutical testing regulations domestically and abroad. Following World War II, the world was restless and in recovery from the mental and physical traumas inflicted. This manifested in the form of exceptionally high market demand for sedatives, especially in Europe and the United States. German pharmaceutical company Chemie Grünenthal first synthesized the drug thalidomide in 1954. Characterized by claims of safety, thalidomide was sold and distributed throughout Europe as a versatile wonder drug, recommended to people of all ages and for uses ranging from sleeplessness to emotional disturbance. Although neither tested nor approved for use during pregnancy, its anti-nausea properties spurred many physicians to prescribe it to reduce morning sickness. Chemie Grünenthal capitalized upon this trend, shifting marketing to target pregnant women. At a time when 1 in 7 medical prescriptions were for sedatives, the $2.7 billion U.S. drug market was filled with enormous potential for thalidomide and its derivatives. Simultaneously, post-war America's pro-family culture resulted in a baby boom that dramatically increased demand for pregnancy medications. In an attempt to enter the American market in 1960, pharmaceutical company Merrill applied to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for approval of thalidomide. Having previously been licensed in Canada and more than 20 European and African countries, the thalidomide application was assigned to Dr. Frances Oldham Kelsey, one of the FDA's newest recruits. Born in Cobble Hill, British Columbia in 1914, Kelsey graduated from high school at age 15 and received her PhD in pharmacology from the University of Chicago. She remained on faculty, conducting research on drugs that caused birth defects. Her research served as a turning point in the medical understandings of congenital malformations, demonstrating that contrary to common medical belief, the medications that pregnant women took were able to affect a developing fetus by passing through the placental barrier. It was with this specialized background and expertise that Kelsey examined Merrill's application.
It just so happened that my first application was for the drug thalidomide. I got this because I was new and they thought I should have an easy one to start on.
Upon examining Merrill's thalidomide application, Kelsey found its data on thalidomide's absorption and toxicity inadequate.
She pointed out that if you can't find an LD50 in rats, how do you know that the drug's even being absorbed by them? If you're not showing an LD50 and you're not showing absorption in a rat, then you haven't really tested the drug.
The lack of evidence regarding fetal safety particularly concerned Kelsey, especially for a drug that was intended to be marketed for morning sickness. Merrill had not tested thalidomide on any pregnant animals whatsoever, much less pregnant humans. In direct opposition to the quick, affirmative reply that Merrill was expecting, Kelsey rejected its thalidomide application, requesting more extensive studies to prove its safety and established risks. Rather than providing Kelsey with the safety data she had requested, Merrill representatives attempted to persuade her to approve thalidomide in a series of phone calls and visits. Unaffected by their pressure, Kelsey withstood a barrage of complaints by Merrill executives who argued that her rejection of thalidomide was a result of incompetence on her end rather than that of their drug application. Kelsey later stated in a press interview that most of the things they called me, you couldn't print. The subsequent evidence provided by the company in following applications was riddled with corruption and deceit. In June of 1961, an article promoting the safety of thalidomide during pregnancy was published.
It was allegedly written by a Dr. Ray Nolson, but in fact, the article was written by the medical director of the drug company.
As Kelsey continued to review and reject Merrill's applications, news of thalidomide's adverse side effects began to surface. As more and more of the women who took thalidomide during pregnancy gave birth, a horrifying truth revealed itself. Thalidomide caused a range of severe birth defects, with the type of deformity dependent on the stage of pregnancy during consumption. In the 46 countries which had approved thalidomide, over 20,000 babies were miscarried or stillborn, thousands died soon upon birth, and 100,000 more were born with deformities such as extra appendages, shorter limbs, no limbs at all, missing ears, and more.
I got short arms about elbow length with just digits on, but I haven't got working fingers, so they don't hold anything.
I have no arms at all. I am totally blind and I lost my eyes.
Kelsey's stubborn delay of the approval of thalidomide had served as a turning point in preventing a similar scale of tragedy from happening within the United States.
We may have had as many as 10 times the number of birth defects that we're seeing in the rest of the world, maybe even 1 million cases.
By the end of 1962, thalidomide-induced deformities in newborns decreased dramatically as the drug was removed from all European markets. This tragedy served as a turning point, as justification for Kelsey's stubborn stance, but also drove recognition of the need for regulatory reform.
Concern over the tragic effects of the new sedative thalidomide prompts President Kennedy at his press conference to call for stronger, better administered drug laws.
For some time, President Kennedy has tried to get Congress to approve new controls, but without much success. Now, with the thalidomide scare, most of the opposition has melted.
In 1962, the Kefauver-Harris drug amendments were passed unanimously by Congress, requiring by law that all drugs were to be effective and transparent about side effects. On August 7, 1962, Kelsey was awarded the President's Award for Distinguished Federal Civilian Service by President Kennedy.
Also, I think to see if we can assist other countries in providing effective safeguards for their own citizens, because the interrelationship between them and us is very intimate.
Drug reforms in the U.S. went on to inspire and help shape Directive 6565 EEC in the European Union and the Medicines Act of 1968 in the United Kingdom. Kelsey's impact and influence continued to expand beyond the thalidomide scandal. She became responsible for the supervision of drug testing at the FDA and launched the Drug Efficacy Study, which reclassified 1/3 of the 3,500 drugs on the market as ineffective.
The clinical trial process that was introduced after the thalidomide tragedy should help us to avoid this kind of a tragedy on a huge scale internationally, and that's because of the drug testing required.
In 2005, Kelsey retired from the FDA at age 90 after 45 years of service. However, her legacy carried on, and in 2010, the FDA instituted the Kelsey Award, to be awarded annually to an FDA employee for excellence and courage in protecting public health. Kelsey died at the age of 101 on August 7, 2015, less than 24 hours after being recognized as a member of the Order of Canada for her role against thalidomide. In modern context, thalidomide itself has faced a turning point as well. Under strict regulatory guidelines, pioneering research has positively identified its uses in fighting leprosy, AIDS, breast cancer, and multiple myeloma blood cancer.
I am of the opinion that if anyone else at the FDA had received this drug application for approval, that they would have pretty much rubber stamped it. It was already on the market. It had been on the market for several years in a lot of other countries. And there were no reports at that time, at least there were no reports that were made public of adverse side effects from thalidomide. I think anybody but Frances Kelsey would have approved it.
In just her first case with the FDA, Frances Oldham Kelsey withstood immense commercial and administrative pressure to protect American citizens. The vindication of her protest served as a turning point in preventing tragedy domestically and transforming public health and pharmaceutical testing regulations internationally. In setting precedent through protest, Kelsey's heroic actions serve as a turning point testament for public health officials to prioritize evidence over eminence in the face of commercial pressure in the pharmaceutical industry.
Make the most of your life. We have a fantastic community and we have a very strong bond with each other.
Most of us manage to live to quite an extent. Sometimes you have to cry and scream and shout and kick, but there is a life and you really got to butt down and do it because, life is fantastic. You can create yourself any life.